It's great to have you here on the Clark Howard Show. You know, our mission is to serve you with advice and information that empowers you so you make better financial decisions in your life. Now, today's show is not beginning with a heavy financial topic, but it's something that's close to my heart. The changes in the gasoline industry that are working for you and working for them. So, where are the best places in America for you to go fill up that tank and maybe fill up your belly at the same time? I'm going to tell you. Also today, during the pandemic, something happened in this country that reversed a trend that was not our economy's friend. Americans rediscovered being entrepreneurs with all the upset and discombobulation. Is that a term? We were so discombobulated during COVID. And now we're getting enormous economic benefits from the new entrepreneurial spirit in the United States. I want to talk about that later in this podcast. Okay, so there's something happening around the country that has been so the consumer's friend with gasoline. And it's that we have these independent retailers that are selling gasoline and running circles around the traditional oil company stations. And the benefits are so many, and they're available in much of the country except parts of the Northeast and the West Coast. People are not benefiting from the changes in how you buy gasoline. But we've got these chains that are becoming forces in their own right that are providing a safe environment, well, safer, with the whole idea being, would a woman alone at night feel comfortable pulling in to fill up the tank of her vehicle and go inside if they want to use a bathroom or go inside to buy a snack or something like that? And the marketplace speaks. And so there is a clear trend that these chains that are growing are really making a difference in what you and I have to pay at the pump, and also what is available inside that makes people happy. The American Customer Satisfaction Index that generally does things like, you know, best and worst banks and, you know, best service at this, that, or the other. They actually did a survey of these big convenience store chains, and crazily, overwhelmingly, they get very, very high scores in customer satisfaction, better than people do in different industries. I mean, like, you compare the customer satisfaction scores of that versus something terrible like the cable monsters or the phone companies or something like that. I mean, it's just head and shoulders different. But tops in the country, according to the survey, is Pennsylvania-based Wawa, that is a steadily growing presence up and down the eastern seaboard. And my son is obsessed with the Wawa hoagies. And in fact, my son now is so enthusiastic about it, he has my wife specifically saying, I want this hoagie or that hoagie, you make it for me, because he's got it down to a science, having it done for them. And you think, food at a gas station? Well, to call them gas stations is just an insult, because these places are a whole different kind of things. Let's call them an oasis or a resort. Like, think of Buc-ee's. I mean, Buc-ee's is an event and comes in third in the American Customer Satisfaction Index. I mean, I love Buc-ee's. And if you're like, Buc-ee's, what's that? You been in a Buc-ee's?
I've never been in a Buc-ee's.
How many times have you driven by a Buc-ee's and not gone in
I've
one?
never driven by one.
Not that you noticed.
Not that I noticed, but aren't there like signs, like tons of signs that I would have seen? I have
If
to
you were
say,
paying attention.
everyone should have the chance to go to a convenience store with you at some point because you are hilarious. I know we talked about it once before. Like, you notice everything. You're like, oh my gosh, look at the industrial carpet that they put in here, and it's so nice. And they did that because blah, blah, blah. And look, that's a new Slurpee section. Like, they have all these machines. Like, you are like completely tuned in to all the details.
Well, I love innovation.
I know.
And
you do.
I think about the major oil companies. They may be great at exploration. They may have done so much with fracking. They've done so many things to provide supply to make the U.S. the largest energy producer in the world. They are lousy retailers. And so the marketplace has benefited from these lower prices on gasoline that these different players are doing. And then the market's also benefited from particularly giving women a safer environment, who are out alone and having to buy gas or whatever. And I mean, it's just market forces. They're finding what works and making it happen. I should go through this list really quickly, though, because, you know, I love Sheetz. Mm-hmm. And Sheetz only came in 6th in this survey, which I was surprised by. But Wawa was number 1. Mm-hmm. Quick Trip, there are 2 Quick Trip chains in the country that spell it differently. This is the one that starts with a Q. It's based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I mentioned Buc-ee's came in 3rd. Surprisingly, Murphy, which has the big tie-in with Walmart, came in 4th. Casey's, which investors love Casey's, came in 5th. Then Sheetz. Then the other Quick Trip, the one that begins with a K, came in 7th. And so these chains are becoming multi-billion-dollar enterprises because they're giving people a better deal, better prices, generally, sometimes an uneven experience, but generally a better experience. And if you're just into the price of gasoline, obviously you want to go to the warehouse clubs. But if you want the total experience, you want to go to these chains. And here's the dirty secret about the oil companies. The oil companies don't allow the person running their individual stations to set the price. They engage in this exotic system generally of price fixing based on what they think they can get away with charging in a particular area. And that poor guy or woman who owns that station or is managing that station, the dealer, they don't have control of the price on that pump. So don't be yelling at them because the price is too high, because usually they don't have any say-so, where these independent retailers, you know, they're responding completely to the market as it should be.
And a lot of them are putting in the electric chargers too, never mind gasoline, because then you have to sit there. So you want a nicer place to be able to go in for 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay, you want to hear the crazy thing about this business?
What?
They're not making really any money on the gallons of gas. They're trying to get you there to buy the things inside. But they make 3 times the net profit on electric vehicle people charging, because they're usually there longer waiting for their vehicle to charge than somebody getting gasoline filling up the vehicle. And so those electric vehicle chargers popping up at these gas stations are more profitable for them than the people filling up at the pump.
And I know
that's only temporary, though, because of the breakthroughs with charging time getting down below 10 minutes.
That's true. And I know some people might point out, you said women feeling safe. We all want to feel safer. It's true, though, that I feel like when I watch the news, half the times you see there was a shooting overnight, it's at a gas station. Like, what's up with that? There's so much crime that happens there.
Yeah, I don't know why they end up being a magnet for sometimes undesirable sorts.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing, you go to any convenience store, leaving your car running while you go inside, this is a really bad idea.
Really bad.
You ask any police officer, they'll tell you. If you ask them about the car thefts, they'll say, yeah, people are just leaving their cars running with the keys inside.
Sometimes there's a kid inside or a dog.
Well, those are tragic, potentially.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to questions now.
Okay.
10 minutes on convenience stores. That's a record,
I
but I
could have
love
done it. I could have
know.
done it for 50 minutes.
Could have been the
2
whole
hours.
podcast. Yeah, for sure.
I could tell you the benefits of why Buc-ee's has the best bathrooms of anybody.
I'm going to have to go to a Buc-ee's with you. That's going to be a road trip. All right. Angela in Virginia says, can you explain unrealized capital gains? Is this something we have to worry about in the future, and how could it even be kept up with? Not to mention, how would it hurt the house rich but cash poor?
Okay, so the idea of unrealized capital gains is one of the most bizarre proposals that is one of those things that gets a lot of buzz and is almost certainly going nowhere. The idea of it is that you'd be taxed on phantom gains. You own something, and let's say this year the value goes up, so you'd have to report the estimate of what value is this year, but you still own it. So where are you going to come up with the tax dollars on something? And then next year it could go down in value. It's an accounting nightmare. It's a personal cash flow nightmare. And I can't imagine something like that actually ever being adopted.
Cecilia in Georgia says, if my credit has significantly improved in the last 2.5 years since I purchased my car, is it worth it for me to consider getting a new car, trading in my vehicle, or refinancing my loan?
So we had door A, door B, door C. Door C is the answer. Refining a car loan is so often a great idea. If you have equity in that vehicle, refining is wonderful. People dramatically overpay for vehicle loans in pretty much all economies, meaning no matter where interest rates are, because 80% of people make the most fundamental error of all. They don't get pre-qualified for a loan at a credit union before they go to buy a vehicle. So somewhere over 80% of people finance at the dealer. If you finance at the dealer, quite often you'll be paying 2 to 3 times the interest rate on a vehicle what you would pay if you went to a credit union to start with. If you go to a credit union first, you already know you pre-qualified for a rate, and the dealer says, well, we'd love to write your loan. You say, okay, but I've got this pre-qualified rate from the credit union. But if you haven't done any homework up front, the dealer is free to mark up that loan as much as they want. Their wholesale cost for the loan could be, let's say in today's market, 4.8%, and they're charging you 16%. And they're pocketing all that difference. And so you're paying for the convenience of one-stop shopping. Let me tell you, that's a big expense. So if you've got a high-cost car loan and you've had your vehicle for a while, you should go to a credit union, hopefully you're already a member of one, and see what you can do on a refi based on your credit score.
Nidhi in North Carolina says, Clark, what are your thoughts about adding insurance cards in Google Wallet? I have no issues having my credit cards stored in the Google Wallet because of the protection offered if the cards are compromised, but I'm a little uncomfortable adding my insurance cards. I would like to see your thought process on this. Big time, Clarky. Shout out to you and your team for all that you guys do to help us get better financially.
Well, thank you very much. And as far as having insurance cards in Google Wallet or Apple Wallet, I'm fine with doing that in either. It's better than carrying them on your possession. They are better protected there, and carrying any kind of document that can get swiped from you is not a good idea. And so an insurance card is a good example of something that you have to show repeatedly, and having it in an electronic form, I think is actually superior, even with all the hackers and all that, to carrying the actual paper around. Coming up ahead, our second edition, talking more about convenience stores. No.
No.
Not going to do that to you. But I do want to talk about why, if you've got something you thought, there ought to be a better way, there ought to be a better place, there ought to be this, that, or the other. If there ought to be, what about you? And I'll tell you why it's so important for this country and for your own life. We know that COVID was a nightmare for us and people around the world. We lost roughly 1.5 million Americans, tragically lost their lives due to COVID. And a lot of disruptions. The inflation cycle we had, so many things that were negative, but at the same time, out of any tragic event, there's so many positive things that happen. One of them is all the innovations. How you see how versatile and creative people are. I mean, think about after a disaster of whatever kind, how people help each other out. People innovate. People create. And I think about all the ways that business got going again and all the things that businesses learned to do differently. And, one of the foolish things that was going on in American capitalism prior to COVID was we would have endless varieties of things. We probably didn't need 68,000 different varieties of paper towels and toilet paper. Well, what manufacturers did when we were dealing with supply chain shortages is they looked, what were the ones that actually sold in big volumes? And let's keep those production runs going. That's how we overcame a lot of supply chain shortages, was people rationalized their productions. They rationalized their product lines. And that happened because of COVID. We ended up learning how to do, for people who worked in office environments, how to do this remote work thing that we're still arguing about today. And who had ever heard of a Zoom until COVID? And there are many things like that I could say. But to me, the most important thing that happened for economic vitality in the future of our wallets, economic growth in the United States, and our position in the world is that it led to another wave of entrepreneurial businesses that have started up. I saw something recently from the Census Bureau. This is a quote from the New York Times. Businesses formed from when COVID started to 22 have created 7.5 million new jobs in the United States. The reality is companies get larger, get older, and they get stale. They become averse to innovation. They become afraid to try new things, and they get stuck in their habits. And so that creates this wave of opportunity if people will seize it to take advantage of holes in the marketplace and get going. Now, does it mean you're going to succeed if you get out and start a business? No. But I can tell you one of the things, the secret sauce that has allowed the United States economy to remain so vital, no matter what else is going on in the world, no matter what else is happening in our country, is this opportunity we have for any of us to go out there and start our own thing. And we have had so many new businesses started in the last few years. It's been a wave, and a lot of younger people who were starting off their careers in corporate culture were like, I hate this. And they went out and started their own thing, saw needs in the marketplace, and went and filled them. And jobs are created, and economic growth is created, not from existing enterprises, but from new innovators. And if you look at who the giants are today, many of them started when we were having rough economic times after the September 11th terrorist attacks, 9/11 attacks from 23 years ago. And so innovation comes in times of adversity. And people getting out there and starting their own businesses is part of the reason, I don't know how much of the pie, but part of the reason that the U.S. economy is doing so much better than pretty much everywhere else in the world right now. And it's because of the people who have the guts to go out and start a business. So if you have a business idea, you think there's a need for a product or service out there that is not being met, if you feel that, go out there and make it happen. Again, you may belly flop. On the other hand, you may end up with the next big thing, or at least a successful thing that serves people's needs. And isn't that what it's all about? Is that you create that thing that people have been hungering for and make a difference.
I think about one of my heroes, Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx. You know, she was cutting the feet out of her pantyhose because she wanted to...
She was a copier saleswoman.
Yes, she used to sell copy machines door to door. And she was doing this thing and because she wanted to wear white jeans and look great in them or whatever. And so she took her own savings, like $5,000, and she started Spanx and built it up. And she never even took outside investors. And
what was so important about Sarah Blakely's story? Men didn't get it.
Yes, that's so
and
true.
She would go pitch one potential investor after another.
Well,
on
not the investor.
idea.
She was going to.
And retailers.
She was.
Yeah.
It was actually the people who manufactured. Like they didn't get it.
Oh, they didn't
like
get
what
it
she
either.
really struggled to find someone to manufacture it, and it was all these men who were like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then she finally found someone who took a chance on her.
But she also had that thing that an entrepreneur has to have, which is belief in self.
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurs sometimes have to overcome this skepticism that others will have. Oh, patting you on the head. That's so cute. But
yeah.
she didn't let that slow her down, and she ended up a billionaire how many times over. And now she's making these weird shoes in a new enterprise. Have you seen it?
I love them. Sneaks, yes. She's trying to make high heels comfortable.
They're also like $1 million a pair.
Well, you
could buy a bad used car for what one of the pair of shoes cost. I mean, shoes are transportation too, but
I love her. And
she's a very creative, innovative woman. And I don't get fashion at all.
Right.
As you know.
Yeah, this isn't your area.
It's not my area. But how much are those things? Like $500 for a pair of shoes?
Yeah, they're expensive. I mean, they start at, I think, $3-something, depending on what. Yeah.
All right. The shoes I'm wearing are truly the most expensive I have ever bought in my life. And I am ashamed to tell you that I spent $81 on a pair of shoes. Can you believe I spent that much?
You walk so much that you need good shoes for your feet.
But Lane, my wife, is horrified by how ugly my shoes are. But that was the one that was on clearance, the color.
The orange.
Should I show the orange?
Sure.
All right, let's see.
Oh, boy.
Let's see. For those of you who watch our YouTube show, these are my ugly, some family members have used terms for them.
If you're a Tennessee or Florida Gator fan, you don't think that's ugly.
I think that's more
or Clemson, orange,
yeah,
Syracuse.
It's one of those strong, vibrant orange colors that kind of stand out. It's funny if you see somebody on a football Saturday in an airport, they're going to a football game, and they're wearing one of those orange schools. You forgot Oak State.
Oh, sorry.
You're wearing any of those colors. You can close your eyes after you've seen them, and you're still seeing those colors.
All right, we'll go to questions now. This one came in from Pat in Iowa. I am currently in talks with a financial advisor. One of his recommendations is to switch my work 401k from Roth back to traditional. I am 60 and about to retire in the next year or so.
Wow, going to retire at 61 or 2. That's fantastic.
I don't really need the paycheck right now. He wants me to put as much of my paycheck into the traditional 401k as my employer / the IRS will allow, even if I withdraw it soon. His reasoning is that Iowa does not tax 401k withdrawals, so I'm saving 5.7% automatically. He also has strategies planned to reduce my taxes in the future, so my tax rate will be very low in my retirement years. This is the answer to what if taxes go up in the future? Is this a good plan? I know Clark is a big proponent of the Roth.
So Pat, we got a puzzle here. So you don't need your paycheck to live on at this point. And so you want to shove as much money into tax deferred or tax free as you can. So here's the weird thing that why this is a hard puzzle. So if you do a Roth, you're going to pay Iowa state income tax because the Roth is post-tax dollars going into that Roth. So you're going to pay that tax going in. But then if you do a traditional, you avoid that tax, and then when you take the money out, you don't pay it if you remain an Iowa resident after you retire. So this is why it's a puzzle. If you do the Roth, effectively, you're putting quite a bit more money into your retirement account, and that money will never be taxed again. Because, remember, there's a cap in how much you can contribute every year, and it doesn't distinguish between traditional and Roth. So if you're putting in after-tax dollars, you've effectively significantly boosted how much money is going in to an account that grows tax-free and you spend it tax-free. So that is the conundrum that might overcome the 5.7% tax that you would avoid, is that you're able to boost so much how much money you're able to put into a tax-free forever account this year, next year, and maybe the third year before you decide to bag work completely. Did that confuse you?
It's not. I don't know that but you're not sure. Is what you're
No,
saying.
what I'm saying is,
like the planner
it's not a slam dunk to switch from Roth to traditional just because you're focused on the 5.7% Iowa tax, because you can push so much more money into tax-free status because of the effective amount greater that you're putting in the full amount into a Roth 401k instead of what you're allowed to put into the traditional.
What I'm getting from it, though, is this planner doesn't sound like they're trying to do anything bad. Like they sound like they know what they're talking about.
Nothing bad at all. Yeah. It's just there is another perspective on, because I am the man from Roth.
Right. I just want to make sure, because he's talking to this planner. I mean, they're not trying to put him in something
They're
crazy.
not trying to do something bad or crazy.
Jared, also in Iowa, wrote in, "My wife and I are renters, and my mother-in-law owns a house. She's considering selling her house, and then all three of us would purchase a house together. She would put down a large down payment, and my wife and I would take a mortgage for our portion. All three of us would be on the deed. Is there any risk if years from now she has to go into a nursing home that the nursing home could take the house or put a lien on it? Is there a better way to structure this to potentially protect the asset of the house?"
Okay, so it's not the nursing home ultimately, it's the state, because what you're talking about is a Medicaid spend down that would then allow the stay in a nursing home when your mother-in-law has exhausted her assets. The state of Iowa ends up paying through the Medicaid program for the stay in the nursing home. And then Iowa, and every state's rules are a little different on confiscation of a home. But my understanding as a general rule is that if you own a home with your kids, that is considered to be a strategy to try to avoid having it taken, and the state will still try to seize at least a portion of the house, maybe in the case of three of you owning it, a third of the value. This could be risky territory, and before you would proceed, there's a subspecialty of the law called elder law attorneys. And before you would go forward with this plan, you want to pay for probably taking not even an hour of time for an elder law attorney to advise on what the risk would be in the state of Iowa doing this, where the three of you, 2 adult children and a parent, owning a place together. What would be the risk to your equity and ownership that would happen because of the possibility of the Medicaid spend down?
Jeannie in Virginia says, "Help, I accidentally attached a full copy of my tax return to an email I sent via Yahoo. It was sent to my local tax commissioner's office and not a nefarious person, but still, what do I do? I'm typically so careful about keeping my social security number and information private, but I accidentally attached the wrong document. I shudder to think of all the information someone would have if they intercept it. My credit is frozen, but is there anything else I can do to protect myself and my husband?
Okay, first things first, Jeannie.
Poor Jeannie. Oh
Take
my
a
God.
deep breath. Take a ujjayi, what do you call that? Breath?
Yeah, deep breath.
The deep breath.
Just the moment she realized what she did, that's so the worst. I mean, who hasn't sent an email by mistake?
Yeah.
Oh.
So you're going to be blown away by what I say. Don't freak out at all. And here's why. You've already done the right thing. You've frozen your credit files because your social security number and other personal information has been breached in so many data breaches over the last 5 years that this was an unforced error that will not create any meaningful additional risk to you that I would fret about. So I'm not saying, willy-nilly don't protect your information anymore. All I'm saying is that we have been so subject to our information leaking and hacks that you have not created any significant additional risk in your life. You've taken the right precautions with credit freeze already before this. So cut yourself some slack and don't worry so much about it. This should not be the triggering event for some kind of financial problems or identity theft problems in your life. I'm not going to be very worried about that, and I don't want you to be either.
In other words, we're all already host anyway.
Well, I mean, it sadly, ever since the Equifax data breach of, was that 7 years ago?
Longer, wasn't it?
I don't remember what year. There's sometime in the teens, I think. The Equifax data breach was my wake-up call that nobody was really protecting our private, sensitive information. And the Equifax data breach was really the launch of a new era because more than half of American adults, had our key personal information available for crooks, including Social Security numbers, driver's license numbers, so many other things.
2017, you're right.
I was right? Okay.
Of course you were.
No,
You have
of
such
course.
a memory for dates. You're so good with that.
I can't remember anything else.
That's not true.
No, this is crazy. We were having a conversation the other day. I could not remember the eye colors of my kids or myself. I don't even know my own eye colors. And I see my eyes in the mirror every day.
They look blue.
I don't know.
Bluish green.
I never register stuff like that.
Yeah, I think they're like bluish green.
So we have things. Numbers are my thing. Everything else, not so good at. Just a fact. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast and know that we are here to serve you so many different ways, including with free one-on-one advice available to you 30 hours each week, except during holidays, from the Team Clark Consumer Action Center. And we've been doing this for we're almost in our 32nd year. Or we are in our 32nd year. We're providing free one-on-one advice. If you want to know how to do that, go to clark.com/CAC. What we're all about is you learning ways to save more, spend less, and avoid getting ripped off. And we'll see you tomorrow.